Guys, what's going on? It's Dave Tilley here at Champion PT up in Boston. I'm pulling a little bit of a Mike Reinold tactic and going through a little whiteboard video demonstration for something that I think as a gymnastics coach and as someone who works with a lot of athletes doing more handstands, which is awesome by the way, that there's a lot of things that people can get hung up on, right? And I think that we're overlooking some very, very common errors and we're maybe working on the wrong area of the body. So I use the comparison to talk about the squat and dorsiflexion, screening that compared to weight-bearing wrist extension and a handstand or handstand walking, handstand push-ups, whatever you want to work on, progressions, tripods, and even quadruped activities too, like crawling, right? So we know this pretty well from some normative data and things we've seen is that good dorsiflexion is needed to squat well, right? To get a full squat, whether that's a fitness goal of just, squatting for loading versus maybe someone who's an Olympic lifter is trying to do a deep squat, right? You need good dorsiflexion to show a good squat and minimize the risk of, lumbar winking at the bottom under heavy load or something like that. Now, obviously in that, it's not just ankle dorsiflexion, there's pronation and, tarsal involvement as well as big toe. Totally get it, but we still want to screen for this, right? Normative data shows that we'd like to see someone about 4 inches or more, showing they have enough dorsiflexion to squat enough for, full depth, right? If we don't have that, there's tons of things that we see, right? We see people who pitch their trunk forward, we see people who get some hip FAI symptoms, some low back flexion early, and they get some lumbar stress, knee pain, like there's a lot of different things that can happen, right? Obviously, we would screen the hip and the rest of the equation out, but just looking at the squat like this, somebody probably won't pass a weight-bearing lunge test, right? So obviously, we need this to screen as an important factor. There's not a lot of great normative data on weight-bearing wrist extension. So I've kind of come up with just like intuitively a test on my own or a screen that we use. And it's the same thing here is that somebody who does not have, right, 100-ish, 90+ degrees of weight-bearing wrist extension will not be able to stack their center of mass over their wrist and in their mid of their hand to keep themselves balanced, or if you're walking or leaning forward to do handstand push-ups or progressions, you're not going to have that translation of your center of mass over your wrist, right? So what we do is we see someone over here who doesn't have that center of mass progression, and what do we see? We see the head pop out, we see a huge shoulder angle, people overextending in their lumbar spine, legs kicking all over the place, right? Not good technique to maintain good alignment here, and also can lead to a ton of wrist pain, shoulder and upper neck thoracic area, overload, and some people get extension-based low back pain, right? So sometimes on both sides of the equation, if you don't screen out the bottom, people are like, oh, my hips are stiff, I'm gonna work on my hips a lot mobility-wise. They're doing everything under the sun for their hips, but the problem's in their ankles. We see the same thing up here, right? People are doing a ton of shoulder mobility work. They see the angle. They're like, oh, my shoulders are stiff, my neck's tight, I gotta work on that. So they do a ton of above the road mobility work and they get nowhere, right? You have to screen out this test first to see, is this part of the equation? So what we're gonna do is I'll show you over here with my man Pope. So Dan is gonna come down on hands and knees, right? This is how we like to screen for it. We don't do it on a softer surface that's compliant because you're gonna lean and you're gonna get some squishing here. We wanna do it on the hard floor, right? So what Dan's gonna do is he's gonna come and put one hand about a hand width away from the edge of the table, right? The reason why I do this is because I'm looking more for the angle of the wrist, including the hand and including some of the knuckles to get over, but I don't really know normative data on this, so I can't say that 4 or 3 or something is really good. We're just looking for this angle of progression. So what he's gonna do is go hands and knees, his head's gonna go off to the side of the plinth table so he doesn't hit his head, and he's gonna lean forward and try to contact his shoulder up against the railing, right? And even though he's leaning, I'm telling him to lean for that, I'm looking for this angle, right? I don't really care if he touches, right? I'm looking to see what is this, and then Dan, do you feel anything?
A little pinchy in here.
Okay. So there's 2 things that can happen, right? You can have stretching in the back, or you can have pinching in the front, right? Stretching in the back is probably gonna be forearm, soft tissue-wise, a lot of gripping. We see Olympic lifters who grip the barbell, lose front rack. We see gymnasts who grip bars or hang a lot and do pull-ups or rope climbs. They lose the ability to go the other way. Now this side of the joint, just like the ankle, that's more of a pinching type pain, right? You're probably squishing your radius and some of your carpal bones on each other. We don't really want that, right? So in follow-up videos, we're gonna talk about mobilizations or things we can do for it, but just super important that we screen out both of these things rather than jumping to shoulders or thoracic spine or something like that.